This is All Things Ansys, a podcast from the technical support staff at PADT. Episode 67, what is coming with the next release of Ansys Discovery, with updates on news and events in the Ansys world. Welcome to July. If you're a longtime listener of our podcast, you know that this is the month where I start mentioning how hot it is here in Phoenix, Arizona. This whole week's been over 110 degrees. I think 112 was the peak. And that's just the way it is, but we still complain about it because, we choose to live here, but that's the price we pay for incredible rest of the year. So the other reason why you may be hearing about Phoenix in the news, besides our record high temperatures, is because we've really become, if not then the hotspot for COVID-19 in the country right now, if not in the world. I just want to let everybody know that PADT staff and family are all safe. We've been following the guidelines and using common sense, and so far none of our employees have caught the disease. We continue to mostly work from home and follow strict rules at the office. Our first half of the year, from a business standpoint, was actually pretty good. I want to actually take this opportunity to those of you that are customers to really thank you for whatever you do with PADT, for trusting us through all of this. It's been great to see the loyalty and to be able to help people. There's not a lot of positives to this whole thing, but that's one of them. The podcast itself is doing well too. We've had 66 fun and fact-filled episodes and over 20,000 downloads. And I want to thank everyone who has been a longtime listener, and to those who are new, welcome. Please remember to subscribe. Whatever platform you use to get the podcast, go ahead and sign up and subscribe. And if there's a way to rate us, please rate us. It really helps get the word out there and show up higher on searches. So let's get right to it. Our interview today, we're going to talk about one of our favorite new products here at PADT. It's Ansys Discovery. We really like acquired tools, and we like talking about the tools that Ansys acquired. But what's kind of cool about Discovery is it's 100% homegrown. And it's a great example of getting the best minds from the various acquisitions, a core team of developers that have been with Ansys for a very long time, working on the original multiphysics solver, what we now call APDL, and some new blood to develop something that is a game changer. And what's really great about this interview is we have the best person on that team to talk about it, Justin Hendrickson. He'll share his real title in the interview, but I always refer to him as the Discovery Evangelist. So let's learn what's coming at 2020 R2 with the Discovery products. Welcome to today's discussion. We're very, very excited to talk about one of our favorite tools at PADT and what's new and exciting about it at 2020 R2 with Justin Hendrickson. And he is actually the person that introduced me to the whole family of Discovery products, which we will talk about as we go here. But he was very patient with me as I changed my point of view as a crusty simulation engineer to understanding what these products really do from a value standpoint. So I appreciate to continue that discussion, Justin.
Thank you, Eric. I still remember giving you that initial demo before we released.
Me scratching my head a lot. I kind of get it. Just keep going.
Innovation sometimes creates a little bit of confusion. It's a good thing.
A little bit of fear. A good innovation creates a little bit of fear too, maybe. So where do I fit in all this? But we're here to talk about the Discovery platform at Ansys Discovery, which is bigger than maybe people get their head around. And there's some new stuff. Is an all new release coming out at 2020 R2. So, but let's start off, Justin. Why don't you tell our listeners, who you are, what your role is at Ansys, where you're attending this discussion from, and also, how you ended up in the world of simulation.
Cool. I'd love to. Thanks, Eric. I am responsible and lead the product management team for our design business unit at Ansys. This is a group really focused on bringing simulation and making simulation accessible to a wider audience of user so that they can benefit from all of the amazing value that simulation has to offer. Mm-hmm. Now, the question of how did I end up here, right? Spending all my days and times working on simulation is an interesting one. I'll give you the short but slightly longer answer. I grew up, in a more rural suburb of Massachusetts. So I'm calling in from Wayland, Massachusetts. And my dad was an engineer, and I grew up on a 4-acre property, and I'd was taught by my dad to do a lot of stuff with my hands. We built stuff, we tinkered with stuff, right? But at nights, I loved computers, right? I would build my own computers, and that's what I would do. So when I eventually went to school, right, I studied mechanical engineering. No surprise, right? I have a dad who influenced me to use my hands on and build stuff, but I like computers at the same time. So when I graduated with various mechanical engineering degrees, I joined a startup called SpaceClaim, right, when they were very small. And the goal of that startup was to create a next generation of 3D modeling or CAD software, right? How can we do it different? How can we do it better? And for a guy who likes both computers, right, and mechanical engineering, that's not bad. It's software for mechanical engineers. So that was a perfect fit for me. That's how I entered the software world. And the story of what we did at SpaceClaim, trying to revolutionize and how we can do something different by making different assumptions, is one that for my career has just played out over and over and over, right? We put a lot of great work into SpaceClaim, and we eventually ended up being acquired by Ansys. That's how I became, part of the awesome, happy Ansys family. And we were acquired mainly because, the unique modeling approach that SpaceClaim provide is a really, really good fit with simulation.
Cool. Yeah, it's great. And we've said this on the podcast before when we talk about SpaceClaim and what's come after the acquisition. That may end up being one of the more valuable technical acquisitions they've ever made because of the people and the technology. It wasn't a slight variation on what we already had. It was like this new blood came coursing through our body.
Thank you. Of course, it makes me smile to hear you say that, right? But I think another way of saying it is it's not a point solution, right? And that's very different. And it feeds into what we're doing with Discovery.
With Discovery and so many other things. I mean, even on the additive manufacturing side, it's been a game changer for what we've been able to do there. So, but anyway, I think most of our listeners have been exposed to the Ansys Discovery product family. But as a reminder, or for those that don't, before we get into the detail of what's new in this release, can you just kind of give that high level overview of what is Ansys Discovery?
Yeah, I'd love to. So about 2.5 years ago, we launched a brand new product at Ansys called Ansys Discovery Live. We chose that name for a number of reasons. One was that we're focused on 3D design and taking a new approach at how we do simulation. At Ansys, we have a lot of deep expertise in how to write physics solvers, right? How to simulate things. We have all this expertise and all this knowledge. And one of the things you get out of that is you think about ways in which you could do it better. And you combine that with changing technology trends. And one of the changing technology trends we saw at Ansys was the emergence of GPUs, right? Graphical processing units, as a source of a heck of a lot of compute power. And so people much smarter than me and Ansys said, how could we look at how simulation would benefit from taking advantage of that hardware? And how could we apply it to a problem? So one of the other things we've seen at Ansys is we author these really awesome codes, but we still think they're not used enough. Right? Ansys may be, a pretty successful company, but man, there are a heck of a lot more people who we think could benefit from using simulation. And why is it that they're not using it? And if we look at it, we think, sometimes it's that, it takes a lot of technical knowledge and training to use our products. And so people, tend to focus and specialize on them. And so could we combine all these things together? The changes in technology to have more compute power, fresh new approaches from what we've learned, and a target of, making simulation easier to use. And could we do it different? And that's where Discovery Live came from, right? We wrote different approaches from the ground up to simulate a broad set of physics. So thermal, fluids, and structural physics very, very quickly. And that's partly thanks to the GPU approach. So when we launched Discovery Live 2.5 years ago, for the first time ever, we had a simulation app at Ansys that can simulate all those types of things instantly. That's why we call it real-time simulation. But more importantly, you could do it very robustly. So you put in a model, you always get an answer. That's an amazing thing, right? To people who actually use simulations. You talk to the engineers that graduate from school now, and they expect things to work that way. What do you mean it doesn't work that way? So there's certainly that. But the last thing we did, which is really cool, and it's why I've been excited to be a part of the project, is we tied in all the SpaceClaim modeling. And why is that important? Well, if we can deliver, really instant physics, right? Quick simulation, what's the very next thing you do after that fast result? You think, what can I change? What did I learn from what I just saw? And so SpaceClaim is that engine of change, right? It allows you to manipulate geometry very easily from any source. And I think really it's the combination of these things that was special.
Yeah. No, and I totally agree with that. And I had been involved in some of the earlier attempts to create a designer-focused version of Ansys tools, especially on the mechanical side and a little bit on the CFD side. And our approach, which ultimately was wrong, was let's just simplify the interface.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We'll put a new GUI on top of it that is simplified. I think you guys learned and showed that it's much deeper than that. You have to design it from the ground up for that audience. Yeah,
I completely agree. Right.
Yeah.
You have to understand it. I think, I personally am a big fan of user interface design. It's a lot of what I worked on from the space claim side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And providing something that changes, usability for a customer is not just about styling, right, and trimming down. It's about looking at the technology itself, and it's a combination of those two things.
Yeah. If we just give them a simplified set of buttons,
more tooltips that will solve the problem.
More tooltips that will solve the problem. And we proved pretty well in like 3 or 4 products that doesn't work. So, but I learned Tickle TK really well doing it. So let's talk about coming up really soon. I think mid-July, right, is 2020 R2, and you're touting it as an all-new version of the Ansys Discovery product family. Tell us about what's coming out.
This is right. Thank you. When we launched Discovery Live 2.5 years ago, we think it was pretty impactful. We got a heck of a lot of attention. But we're about to release a next generation of the Discovery application. And we think this change is equally as exciting and as impactful as that original Discovery launch. So I'd love to tell you more about it. It's something that we've been working on for a number of years. And the name of this new product as we launch it will just be Ansys Discovery.
Okay.
So the first fun tidbit is it's actually something we've been planning, right, for a long time. Discovery Live, you might have noticed we changed the name of Space Claim to Discovery Space Claim, right? So it's actually a plan we've been thinking. So that's your fun fact, right, for the podcast. But we'll be launching Ansys Discovery, and it will be one application. What is amazing about this new application is it takes all the goodness of Discovery Live, instant physics, all the space claim modeling, right? But it brings in a lot of other really valuable things we have at Ansys. It brings in the Ansys Mechanical Solver, MAPDL. It brings in Ansys Fluent Solver, right? So that within this one application, this one environment, okay, a designer can go from geometry modeling to instant high-speed exploration to higher fidelity, build confidence, deeper exploration of your model. Right. I don't know any, other vendor out there who offers something like this, right? Where you can do so many different things. And the other point I want to make it, see if it resonates with you is, what we learned, we learn all the time. So we learned from Discovery Live, we put a product out there, right? We learn things. But one of the major things we learned was, when you're early in the design process, great, fast, flexible, instant simulation is wonderful, but it doesn't encompass everything an engineer needs to do, right? When you're refining and you've picked a design, you need to have confidence, right, in that before you submit to the additional costs of physical testing, or maybe throw it over the wall, right, for an analyst to study and certify. You need to have confidence, and the instant simulation alone, at least not today, doesn't give you enough of that. But Ansys, we have some of the best technology in the world, right, to give you that confidence. It's been proven and tested. And so in this new Discovery app, we're pulling all those things together so that at different stages of your design process, maybe depending on use case, what you need, you can get your job done. So one tool to get your job done.
That excites me so much and is so timely. So we had a design review Monday on a product we're doing for a customer in California, and I can't, of course, because everybody makes us sign NDAs. I can't say what it was, but let's just say it's a test rig that heats up some parts really, really hot. And our design engineers, who are great at designing machinery, have adopted Discovery Live into their process, and they did all their initial sizing. Do I need a fan here? Because there's parts we want to keep cool, and there's parts we want to get hot. Do I put to shield here? These are all questions they could answer in that early stage. It worked exactly as advertised, right? but then they wanted to go to that next step.
Yes.
And a couple of them have taken the time to learn Ansys Mechanical, which is so much easier than the tools used to be, but it's still a different interface, a different tool. They kind of have to change gears. So I call it the energy of activation, right? The problem has to be difficult enough for them to say, all right, I'm going to go into mechanical.
Yes.
and now I'm going to focus on mechanical. And it really drove the design, and it answered a bunch of questions, and we solved the problem. We figured out how to put in a radiation shield to keep the heat where we needed it. Perfect. But the ability now to say, oh, you can stay in that same environment. Yeah, that's going to be a game changer for them, because that energy of activation now is minimal.
It is. There's also that like mental cost to maintaining your knowledge of two interfaces, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of what kills that activation is you think, I don't remember how to do that. I don't want to start, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't do, because one of the issues with design engineers, and there's fewer and fewer design engineers these days. We tend to call them product engineers, right?
Yes.
Because they don't just sit in CAD; they also go out and do testing. They also go out and do.
I strongly agree. Yes.
Yeah. And so even more so, they need a tool that's not oh God, I got to learn this again. And I'm excited about it. That's so cool. So what physics are in there and at what levels?
Yeah. So when thinking about that product engineer, I love what you're using, right? Our sort of tagline is simulation for every engineer, right?
Yeah.
And we really want to say engineer because that's something else we learned from Discovery Live, right? The need for broad access of physics, both instant and high fidelity, that's actually a need that a wide range of users have, right? It's not just design engineers, not just early concept design. We offer in this app, we believe that understanding and getting more out of physics, something that Ansys is really capable of offering, is, multi-physics and multiple physics within a single tool, right? You see a lot, especially when we talk to our customers, they often complain to me, right? I have 4 different tools for doing different types of physics across my organization. It's a pain to support. It's a pain for our users to learn. And when you look at the products that are designed, sometimes there's one physics that's the most important, but the others often still matter, right? And you really want a complete picture of your design. So, long answer to your question, we can simulate both structural behaviors, natural frequency, as well as fluids, like I mentioned fluent earlier inside this application, and thermal behaviors. Something else that I almost classify as a type of physics, but maybe we can touch on this a little bit later, is, topology optimization, right?
Yes.
And a lot of other, cool stuff that we'll be doing down the road.
We need to come back to that, because I have a definite I don't know what you want to call it, almost a crush on topological optimization.
Call it an evangelist. Who knows?
It's having done topological optimization for 30 years now. This is what we envisioned when we started doing it, by setting up our own macros to kill elements, right? So the key thing, though, is we've got the GPU. So within the physics, we've got the GPU-based solvers, which are very fast, right? Instantaneous or almost instantaneous. And then also now what I'm hearing is access to send it off to solve on other other solvers. Yeah.
Other solvers, but in the same environment, right? So to a user, and if I can, let's talk about user experience. That doesn't translate very well on a podcast because you can't see it. Exactly. So I promise you, you want to see, right, this new app. The moment you see it, you will see why it's different. But we are doing a bunch of stuff to support these great technologies, right, from an exposure perspective to make simulation easier to use. We've redesigned the UI. We are making a lot of innovation in this area. We have heads-up type displays so that the access to assigned boundary conditions is at your fingertips, so you feel like you're literally labeling a model, right, as you're doing it. There are no menus. You're not going to find, radio buttons or dialogues, right? And we've even redesigned those. But the other thing that's actually most important is workflow. When I talk to customers, what delights them the most from a user interface is how fast it gets their job done. That's the number one goal. Yes, we design for fun and all this other stuff, but how fast I get my job is the most important thing. So we, are looking at ways to accelerate that. We've completely redesigned and created a way to review and set up contact that we think is innovative and never been done before. And we're leveraging some of the access that we have to geometry inside here, right? So we can query geometry in a way that some of our simulation tools haven't been able to before. We're using our latest, greatest technology in terms of rendering to provide a lot of guidance and feedback. Feedback is something that's really important to me from a user, interface perspective. People want to know what's going on. Why is it going on? When something they don't expect happens, they want to be able to interrogate it. So often we throw things like, error 1241. You're like, what's that? And then worst of all, it's worse than that, right? You look it up and it's like, error in memory, and you're like,
exactly,
cool.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying, right? So we have to be better, right? We're trying to raise the bar. We have to do that. But another piece of the whole workflow and interface is automation. So especially as we brought in our flagship solvers here, this was a new problem we had to tackle, different from Discovery Live, which is we have a lot of expertise in terms of how best to provide inputs to these amazing engines, right, that calculate things. We work to encapsulate a lot of that expertise in the app itself, so that the app is very much like having, a PADT expert, engineer, pre-sales application engineer supporting you, but it's captured. That's what we want to do. And you see some of that in terms of like automated meshing, right? Meshing is a key step. So we have physics-aware meshing. You define different types of physics, right? The mesh is going to automatically adapt. Things that, somebody knowledgeable of setting up simulation would naturally do, but here the app's doing it for you, right? That's the type of thing we're doing. The last thing that I think is actually the coolest thing to think about is we have a whole other workflow challenge when we put these two different solver technologies in the same place. And it's not a challenge, it's actually an opportunity. And this is what I'm really excited about. We've made it seamless. And if you see the app, I hope that people will see that, right? You define materials once, boundary conditions once, it's all one data model. That's awesome. You just solve it in either place. But the cooler part is, how do I use these two things together to my benefit, right? That's never been done before. No one's, faced that and said, it's not just a do instant or do high fidelity. You understand what I'm trying to get at? It's how do I do both? And examples might be, well, let's say we have this high-speed GPU-based topology optimization. That's cool. A key input to topology optimization is the right loads, right? Action forces. Well, what tool do we have in this Discovery app that's really good at solving assemblies, right? And providing high-quality inputs. So those flagship solvers that we've exposed. So that's just one tiny example, right? But where you can use these things together to do workflows and processes you've never been able to do before.
That really opens up a lot of doors. Yeah. I'm sure this will be yet another example of where once users get their head around it, they're going to use it in exciting ways that we never thought, So,
I'm glad you said the last part, because I was going to add it if you didn't, in ways that we didn't thought. I am sure that will happen, right?
Give them the tools and they'll do it. Always. Let's talk a little bit about topological optimization, little background for those that I think everybody knows, but just in case, it's the idea of taking a piece of material, putting loads on it, and letting the whatever it is, stress state, vibration, thermal characteristics drive the topology of that part to an optimal design. So we're not setting up parameters and optimizing on those parameters. We're saying freeform, sculpt, move, whatever the different algorithms are to come up with an ideal shape. And one of the problems with that in the past has been it can take a lot of runs. And if each run takes 20, 30 minutes, even on a fast machine, we tend to not get to some of those optimal shapes, or we don't use some of the algorithms. Like I'm a huge fan of genetic algorithms for topological optimization. So why don't you talk about how using the GPU-based solvers can help in that situation?
I would love to. So this is something I'm really passionate about, and it's something that we pushed very early from the Discovery Live Instant Physics, and that's because we thought it was a perfect fit, right? For all the reasons you just said. Topology optimization, people see and they think, man, that's cool. The simulation is giving me ideas, right? But when it takes hours to get one idea, right, you're missing out on as much value, and so you really have to put the effort in to get something out. We said, look, we have the world's fastest, physics simulation solver. When you do topology optimization, it often involves single domain, right? So you're not dealing with complex behaviors. we can do all that, right? So this is a perfect fit. So we were pushed to do optimization on the GPU as well. So we made it a full GPU stack. It's all in. And the result is that you can now actually use this technology. It's a fancy term, right? Topology optimization. That doesn't mean anything to an engineer, right? Running down the street. But what it means is that simulation is now like a collaborator in your design process, right? It's like if you've used the current versions of Office and you got those, suggested slide layouts,
right?
And you're like, man, those 4 look terrible, but that one's interesting. I didn't think of that one, right? And that's only possible when we can, provide this, shape guidance really, really fast. Right. And that's what I think we can uniquely do. But in delivering this, we've also spent a lot of time on workflow and quality. So, how to set these up, how to understand and apply things like manufacturing constraints. Right. Constraining your problem helps you get better solutions out of this thing that's aiding you, right? The more inputs you give it, the more you get out. The other thing is geometry has always been a real bottleneck for topology optimization. That's one thing you didn't talk about, right? You get this
we just didn't
picture.
Talk about it.
What do you do with it, right?
Fixed in post-processing, right?
Exactly. And so sometimes that becomes a reason that people shy away from it. And so we're trying to address all those, right, to really change this and make this technology that we think adds tremendous benefit.
True generative design, Yeah. And I think we kind of saw the same evolution with topological optimization that we saw with some of these designer-oriented tools. Is we would go head-to-head in benchmarks against some of our competitors that had quote-unquote designer tools for topological optimization, and often the customer would pick it because it was simpler, it was easier. You were wading through sometimes APDL scripts and things like that, and mechanical to get what you really wanted on the Ansys side. But the core technology on those other tools was pretty weak.
Yes.
So yes, it was easy to use and it gave you an answer quickly, but it wasn't useful. And what we're seeing is customers coming back and looking at topological optimization and Ansys going, okay, well, you fixed the usability issue. And I think with the new version of Discovery at R2 is going to 2020 R2 is going to take that another step. But even where we are today, we fixed all of those usability issues and workflow issues to where I can get a complicated result without having to be a PhD in topological optimization.
I can agree. And it's things here we talk, with terms, and I wish we could show it, right? But for me, as a mechanical engineer, right, it's something that when you see it, you're like, that's amazing. One thing sometimes I tell people is, when I graduated, and I studied bachelor and master degree in mechanical engineering from Stanford, but when I graduated, I would tell people,
I've never forgiven you for.
Yes.
Horrible school.
Both in the pack 10, 12? Is that the reason?
Cal.
Okay. I would tell people, man, you really shouldn't hire me to design anything, right? I studied a lot of math. I studied some physics. But, dude, I don't know how to design a wrench, honestly, And really, I think that speaks to real world experience is invaluable. You learn so much, right? And I knew coming out, I was like, man, I don't know how to design squat. But the cool part is if you had showed me, topology jobs that I came out of school, I'd been like, that's what I need. This provides, right, some of the inspiration and ideas of things to try. I can go refine, right? But it takes experience technology.
Exactly. It gives you that inspiration. Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I really encourage everybody to see all aspects of what's in this tool set. But I think the thing that if you haven't seen it before is the almost it's almost like watching the material melt away in front of you, and it is inspirational. You can see where it's headed, and you go, I get it. Yep. So it's pretty cool. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up is GPUs. So really 2 questions there. The first is, we've talked a little bit about it, but how have GPUs changed, and will they change simulation in the future? And then with this new release, are there any changes to what's required from a GPU standpoint, from the actual hardware that we need?
Yeah, great questions. I'll answer the second one first, since it's much simpler.
Much simpler,
about the future of computing.
Yes, exactly.
But the hardware requirements to do everything that the Discovery can do is not changed. They pretty much match up with Discovery Live. You need an NVIDIA GPU. However, we're actually relaxing them because the fact that we have access to both these technologies, our flagship solvers, which can run on CPU, right? If you don't have a suitable GPU, Discovery is still a great tool for you, right? You can now run, you just don't get the accelerated instant exploration now.
Okay.
Go look.
So I don't have to go buy new GPUs for my design engineers.
That is right. Good. But if you do down the road, suddenly your software might become even better, right?
Yeah, even better. Yeah, which is their argument.
Yes. And I can't really comment at the moment about future opportunities we might have, right, to take advantage of all the ways in which you can compute. The GPU is the coolest thing, and why they're attractive and why they've actually come recently is it's all about the cost of computing. Right. And the thing that a GPU offers, we could talk technical, it's different, blah, blah, blah. It's just that it offers cheaper compute, right? Per dollar. That's what it does, and it's because of different trade-offs in technology and all those things. And it also, because it's structured very differently, we had Moore's law and CPUs are growing, right? We're trying to keep up, but frankly, it's slowing down. Well, if you look at the current rate in compute power of a standard GPU architecture, it's actually growing quite quickly.
Yes.
And 10 years ago, that was like, man, who cares? That's so far below, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But now we've caught up and surpassed. So on my laptop, right, I have a GPU that gives you 20 teraflops of single precision compute. That is way, to use, maybe been in simulation a little longer than I have. Right? That number seems, can you imagine years and years ago, right, having that much? It's nuts. That's on a laptop. So it's mobile. We're not talking cloud, right? Mm-hmm. You now have what would be considered high performance computing on your engineer's desktop. And that is a game changer, right? And that's what we're trying to take advantage of. Again, I think compute always grows and competition is really healthy. You see, the CPU companies looking at, like Intel, looking at how they can do hybrid architectures. Intel is actually about to release discrete GPUs. I don't know if you saw that, right? So everybody's all over this. But fundamentally for GPU, the benefits are just that it's a massively parallel architecture, right? That allows you to do stuff differently.
Really cool. Yeah, in fact, we just spec'd a new design engineer box. And I sent it back to my IT guy going, you forgot to put the GPU in here. He's like, no, it's in there. It's $850. I'm like, what?
Well, yeah. NVIDIA's about to release their next generation. Every generation gets 30 or 40% faster, and they come every 2 years. Think about that, right? Your compute gets first and third every 2 years. Extend that out another 10 years. Like, that's insane, right? Where you and I are blown away by 20 teraflops now. What's going to happen when, I don't know what comes after Tera in that case, right? Yeah. Exaflop? It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's insane. Well, I'm excited to be part of it. Let's talk about the launch event. So coming up, what is it, July? I forget.
29th is our launch.
29th is the launch. And there is a chance for everybody to see what's going on, right?
Yes. And we're doing something pretty new to Ansys. So let me tell you about it. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yes. Please come check out our launch event, as I've hopefully got you excited about today. Like, we're launching an entirely new version of Discovery. It's really exciting. The purpose of our launch event is to tell you and show you about that, how it works. We'll obviously include a fairly lengthy demo, which is great. But the more interesting things we're doing is we're also including 3 customer testimonials. We've actually, as part of launching, I think, great software, you want to engage with customers before you do it to get their feedback. So some of them will be talking about that. And the third thing we'll be doing, which is very new, is we're going to try to do more of an interactive webinar. So standard webinar is you get up there, you present, you record it. Great. Thank you for attending. We communicate information.
Please send me an email.
That's right. But for sort of the second half of our session, we're going to separate it out into breakout sessions. Right. Okay. So that you can interact more with us as Ansys staff, right? Ask questions, view the software live, right? And we're structuring them into different types of tracks. Are you more interested in fluids, structures, topology optimization? One of them will involve taking one of those customer use cases that was talked about earlier and going to deeper dive. So the thing is, it's an hour, right, for the event, but because of all the breakout sessions, we really got like 3 hours of content, right, that you can check out, which is super cool.
Very, very cool. Yes, and you can register for that. And we ask. I'm going to make a special ask here because we've told people to go to register on the Ansys website in the past, and we don't get credit for it. So they're like, nobody's signing up for this from PADT.
Go to PADT's website. Works for me. Just go there.
So if you're listening to this and you want us to get good karma with the Ansys gods, go to padtinc.com/discoveryr2. and click on that. Use that link, and that'll take you there. And we get our gold stars for sending you. So I appreciate that if people can do that. So it's padtinc.com/discoveryr2, and we would appreciate that. Or if you don't want to deal with that, just go to the Ansys website or Google Ansys Discovery Launch, and I think you will find it. Anything else you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up? We could talk about this for a very long time, and I think we have late in the evening at a few bars in the past.
Yes, it's something I love. Maybe you can tell a little bit, and I love talking to you about it because you're really passionate too. You know, the only thing that I would leave out there is this is only the beginning, right? This is the first version of software for those who've been in the software industry for a long time, and you've seen, right, how things evolve. So much. And that is not only, I know, of course, the next thing we're working on, the next thing, right? But that is actually an evolution that involves our customers so very much, right? What you tell us from our first release can have significant impact on where we go. And that's part of what makes it fun to do what we do.
Yeah, I really think that Discovery Live was a groundbreaking tool. And I think this is going to be a groundbreaking change.
Next generation.
Next generation. Yeah, next generation. Yeah, to the tool. And it's already changed the way that we do product development at PADT and some of our customers as well. And I can't wait to see how our guys are going to take it to the next step. So I'm so excited about it. It's great stuff. Love new stuff. Love being able to do better, faster, cheaper. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Good idea. Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see you in person soon. Thanks.
I look forward to it. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have to show at the event to launch it. Do go to www.padtinc.com/discoveryr2. That's all one word, discovery, the letter R, and then the numeral 2. That'll take you to the Ansys registration website. You can get there from the Ansys website directly, but if you go through our link, then we get brownie points, and who doesn't like brownie points? So I think even if you're a full-time hardcore simulation person, you need to know what Discovery does, not only so you can do some quick and dirty upfront simulation, but also to help the rest of your company move more simulation to more people. It really is a powerful tool. So do take a look at it. And now it's time for a word from our sponsor, which is PADT. And instead of reading the standard commercial, I want to actually talk to you about our Ansys customization services. We've had a recent set of projects in that area that have finished up, and it really came to mind that I should probably talk a little bit more about it. If you have a feature that is missing, something you want to add to the code, a process that you want automated, maybe an in-house or third-party solver you need to integrate in with an Ansys tool, or use Ansys as a pre- and post-processor, or maybe you need a vertical application for other people in your company, I really strongly feel that PADT is your best solution to get that tool that works, that is robust, and that really delivers on the investment you're going to make in having that tool created. We've done everything from very simple ACT modules that just kind of sit on top of Workbench and do some very basic things, maybe add some post-processing, to completely standalone C++ tools with their own internal solvers that a great example of one that combines test data and simulation results so that they can tweak their simulation models based upon empirical data they get. Very complicated, very sophisticated, but we do everything in between as well. We've even created websites where people can run, your customers can run Ansys in the background, putting in some basic parameters. I challenge you to find someone else who knows Ansys as intimately as we do, knows how to write good and robust real software, and understands the engineering. This is really important. The engineering driving your need for simulation. So we're not just turning a crank here. We know what the tool is going to be used for. So if you have any type of customization needs, shoot us an email. The best way to get hold of us is info@padtinc.com. That goes straight to my inbox as well as a couple other folks, and those never get lost. So info@padtinc.com, and we'd love to talk to you about your customization needs, whatever kind of software you need to be more efficient with Ansys. All right, commercial over. Let's talk about how well the Ansys stock is doing. So they finally broke. We've been talking on the podcast for some time about how they've been playing with $300 a share, and they broke through it this week. On Monday, they closed at 301, and they peaked at 307 on Thursday, July 9th. It's an amazing milestone, especially if you consider the fact that they reached that all-time high in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. On Thursday, June 9th, they closed at 304. That's yesterday. I'm recording this on Friday per share. And that is a 19.58% growth since January 1st. Compare it to some other things. The S&P 500, which is a great benchmark, is only up to 10.75 only in the middle of a pandemic, 10.75% year to date versus the 19.58 for Ansys. Some similar companies, PTC was up 12.7%, Dassault was up 6%, and Altair is also up around about 5.6%. The one that's really outperformed Ansys is Autodesk. Now, Autodesk has always been kind of one that investors and Wall Street pay a little bit more attention to than Ansys and maybe other companies in the sector. They do a lot more besides simulation, of course, as you know. But anyway, they're up. I'm making excuses, but they're up 34.2%, and they're the only ones that are outperforming Ansys that I'm aware of. So great job. It shows that Ansys' investments have paid off, that the team is making customers happy, and at a time where people really are making tough decisions on where to spend their money, they're still spending it with Ansys. So that's good news. And speaking of news, let's take a look at what's going on in the world of Ansys news. In the heart of Silicon Valley, with all those startups and mega companies that are out there, we are really pleased to see that the Ansys office in the South Bay there was recognized as one of the best places to work in the Bay Area. And so you can imagine with all the ping pong tables and beanbag chairs and custom chefs and things, to be recognized in that environment as a great place to work when they don't really do any of those things. They just create a great environment to work and great people and great culture. Is really fantastic, and kudos to the staff there for making that happen. That's a great accomplishment. In other news, the only other piece of news I've got about Ansys is they've been partnering recently with different racing teams. Well, the new one that they partnered with is something called Air Race E, and that's a group that's setting up a series of electric-powered aircraft races. So that looks really cool. They're going to use Ansys to help optimize the aircraft and get better performance out of them. So look for more information on that as time goes by and they start racing those planes. There's an article, a press release about it if you're interested. It's pretty cool. We don't have any news to report from PADT. Everything's going great. I usually pick 3 articles in the Ansys blog, and it's always kind of difficult, but these are the 3 that I thought were worth recommending people go out and click on. So this is the Ansys website on their blog. The first one is an update to an article they wrote in 2017. If you remember back then, they acquired a company called Sherlock, which is a PCB mechanical modeling tool for vibe and stress and thermal and things like that. Reliability is what they call it. So they've updated the article called How to Overcome PCB Modeling Challenges, because the code's really come a long way since then. So it's really about how to get that complicated multi-layer board with all the traces and all the components into a model that can give you useful results. So anybody that works with PCBs doing mechanical simulation or reliability should take a look at the product, and reading this article is a great way to get started. The second one is also about an acquisition. I forget how long ago it was. It was before, I think right before COVID or right at the beginning of COVID. They bought a company called Lumerical, and they model semiconductor photonics. So these are basically semiconductor lasers and other light sources. And so they've got a really cool article about one form of lasers called semiconductor edge emitting lasers. So the article is called Simulating Semiconductor Edge Emitting Lasers. So if you're kind of interested in what that tool does, I think it's a really good article that kind of shows it, because you may have a device that's maybe producing heat, or that you're using for some source, something that you may want to know how to simulate. So it's always good to know these things. And last but not least, Justin, who we just heard from in our interview, he also wrote a great article called 5 Reasons to Get Excited for the all-new Ansys Discovery. So I recommend you take a look at that. If you got excited about what he was talking about, check out the article. It'll prep you for the presentation that's coming up at the end of the month. In our blog at PADT, we don't really have anything new that's in the Ansys world, but what we did, we try to do kind of fun things once a month, and usually it involves food, so like Pie Day or Chocolate Day or something like that. With the pandemic, since most people are home, we've been doing things that we can do online. So last month in June, one of the days of the month, I forget which one it was National Nature Photography Day. So we did a contest. We had people go out and find the pictures they've taken in the past or take some new pictures and submit them to a contest. We all voted and we picked some winners. So our blog article for last month was a summary of the winners. And there's some pretty cool images in there. I have to say, my little cell phone taken pictures didn't get a lot of votes. There's some beautiful photography. We have some talented folks. And some of them are people, if you're an Ansys customer of ours, you may know. So Joe Woodward, Ted Harris, and Alec all had entries that won. So I recommend you check out, I think Ahmed as well, who some of you may have worked with. So the tech support team, which is no surprise, they're smart guys and they like gadgets, took some beautiful pictures. So check that out. It's a nice little diversion. Webinars coming up. We've got 2 in the rest of this month. The first one is Mechanical Updates in Ansys 2020 R2, and that's going to be in the middle of the month on the 15th, which is tax day this year, if you forgot. 11 to 12 Pacific and Arizona time. So, and you can, of course, always register and watch them recorded. And then we've got a one that's on 3D printing, but you may still be interested in it. Stratasys is able to print very realistic parts, body parts, not just parts, but body parts. So the anatomy, human anatomy, using their PolyJet 3D printers and some new materials they developed. It's really interesting. If you're at all in the medical field, I highly recommend you attend that one on the 22nd. And that's also from 11 to 12, Pacific and Mountain. As always, you can go to the PADT website and go to the events page, and you can see a list of all of our events, which are all online right now. That's pretty much it to discuss as far as events go. You know about the Ansys Discovery coming up. We will be doing both podcasts and webinars on stuff that's new at 2020 R2 across the product line, starting with mechanical and working our way through all the other physics. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, to our podcast as well, but also to our newsletter at www.padtinc.com/opt-in. Please spread the word about the podcast, let people know about it, and do not hesitate to reach out.